My son called and said, "We changed the locks. You don't live here anymore." I calmly replied, "That's very brave of you." 2 days later, he received an urgent letter from a lawyer and froze. But what happened next shook him even more. Because of me. Before we begin, please subscribe and like, it's very important to me. It will help me create more stories like this. Now, enjoy listening. Let's begin. The funeral was given to the living leaves. We weren't close friends, more like neighbors who were friendly, chatting in the store, sometimes going to the pharmacy or clinic together. But when you're over 70, every farewell like this is like a blow to the chest. This is the third funeral this year. And it's only the beginning of summer. I walked home slowly, leaning on my cane, because my knee hadn't recovered after my fall in winter. The doctors said that at my age, it takes time, but I refused to listen. I still had strength and plans. I wasn't going to give up just because I was 73. KLI New Street greeted me with silence. I have lived in this house, in the same place, for 38 years. I know every detail, like how the shadow falls from the fence at 4 o'clock, how the right step on the porch creaks. Small, neat houses, even front gardens, flowering trees. The neighborhood is old, quiet, and cozy in its own way. I have spent almost my entire life here. But in recent months, my son Michael has been talking more and more about how I need to move closer to people. "Mom, you understand. It's hard to live alone in a house like this. The stove, the water, the stairs. What if something happens?" "I only have one staircase, with 5 steps," I replied calmly. But he kept repeating that he and Zana had found an excellent assisted living facility. Sunny slope. View of the park, meals, medical supervision. I've been there. It's beautiful and clean. But it's not real life. It smells like medicine there, everything is about routine and silence. It was too early for me to go there. I climbed the stairs and took out my keys. I put them in the lock. It didn't work. I turned it, clicked, and that was it. It wouldn't open. I tried again. Then another key. Then the whole keychain, nothing fit. And then it dawned on me. The locks had been replaced. I stood there, holding my cane, and everything inside me grew cold. This was no mistake. No accident. It was done on purpose. I took out my phone. One of the few new inventions I had come to terms with. Michael insisted, "Mom, get a smartphone. In case something happens." I pressed his name. It rang. On the 3rd ring, he picked up. "Mom, are you home yet?" "I would be if they let me in." "The keys don't fit." He paused. Even through the silence, I could hear him searching for words. "We changed the locks. I wanted to tell you. Jean and I thought it was the best solution. But you yourself said that it's hard for you to walk. My house is 1 story, Michael, I have 5 steps to the porch." "Mom, yesterday you left the stove on." I stepped away for a minute. The phone rang. I would have come back, just Susan, as usual. She came in without knocking and saw everything. Silence. "We prepared a room for you at our place. Then, on a sunny slope. I've already made arrangements. A room with a balcony has just become available there." I was silent. And then, very calmly, I asked what you could say. "So I don't live here anymore?" "Mom, don't say that. We care about you. You often forget to take your pills. You leave the water running." "Very thoughtful," I interrupted. "While I was at the funeral, you changed the locks and started packing my things." "Susan is only packing the essentials." "Mom, I can come pick you up. Or Susan will come." "No, don't. I'll find a place to stay. We'll talk tomorrow." With the documents on the table. "Mom, you don't understand." I hung up. Breathe in. Breathe out. Not a single neighbor around. And thank God. I wasn't humiliated in front of strangers. Although, to be honest, it wasn't a shock. It had been heading in that direction for a long time. Michael was mentioning assisted living facilities more and more often. Susan would drop in unannounced, check if I was taking my pills, if I had turned off the lights. And my grandchildren, Daniel and Emily, were asking more and more questions. What will happen to the house, Grandma, when you're gone? I'm not stupid. I saw how Susan stared at Grandma's court case. How Michael automatically assessed the value of the furniture. I heard Daniel talking on the phone. Grandma's house is prime real estate. The neighborhood is only getting more expensive. I took out my phone and dialed another number. Hello, Anna. This is Margaret Johnson. Do you remember me? Math at your school. Of course I remember. You made me do math problems on Sundays. And now you're a lawyer. And I may need your help. As soon as possible? The taxi arrived in 20 minutes. I looked back at the house. At those windows, the porch, the flowerbed with lilies. It stood, as always, calm. Quiet. Mine. Only now, closed to me. But this is not the end. This is the beginning. If my son has decided that I am no longer able to stand up for myself, he is sorely mistaken. I am Margaret Johnson. I taught math for 35 years. And if there is a system in life, I will find it. And if someone has started a game against me, they don't yet know who they're dealing with. The taxi driver took me to a business center in downtown Chicago. A large glass building with security, elevators, and marble floors in the lobby. Vera Kavayeva's office was on the 8th floor. On the door was a neat sign, K. Vilva and Partners. Inside was a spacious office with nothing superfluous, just a desk, shelves with documents, and a couple of paintings with neutral landscapes. It was restrained but cozy. Anna greeted me warmly. She was already in her late 30s, with a neat short haircut, confident movements, and a calm voice. But I still saw before me that girl with pigtails who, in 9th grade, solved the most difficult problems faster than anyone else in school. Margaret Johnson shook her head as she closed the notebook in which she had been writing down my story. What your son did is not just dishonorable. It's illegal. He essentially took your property while you were away from home. I don't want to sue Igor, I said wearily. He's my son. Then, Anna nodded, we'll find another way. But first, let's check the documents. Who is the house officially registered to? I took out the folder I had been keeping for over 6 months. Ever since I noticed that Michael was taking too much interest in my accounts, I had started collecting everything in a separate folder. The purchase agreement, mortgage payments, documents from the bank, even wills. Anna leafed through everything silently. The house is entirely yours. The loan has been paid off. No encumbrances. You are the sole owner. He has no right to dispose of a single square meter. Okay, I nodded. Now, the letter. I want him to understand how serious this is. We'll do it. But where will you live in the coming days? I'll rent something. Or a hotel. Don't even think about it. Anna shook her head firmly. I have a spare room. Stay with me for as long as you need. And don't argue. It's the least I can do for you. I wanted to object, but she stopped me with a gesture. You were the first adult who believed in me. You said that even a plumber's daughter could become a lawyer. And thanks to you, I didn't give up. So now it's my turn to help. And I gave up. That evening, we went to her house. A cozy, bright apartment with panoramic windows, books on law and childhood photos from graduation on the shelf. In the guest room, there was a neatly made bed, a warm blanket, and a vase with daisies. I was touched. I placed the only personal item I had brought with me from home, a photo in a silver frame, on the nightstand. It was a photo of me and my late husband, Robert. We are standing in front of our house. We had just received the keys. We are laughing, young, disheveled, happy. I sat on the bed, looking at the photo. So many years had passed since Robert fell ill. Michael was only 8. I was left alone. I worked at a school, took on extra jobs, ran clubs. I paid the mortgage, the club fees, the tutors. At night, I checked his notebooks, and then cried in the bathroom so no one would hear me. But we made it through. I gave everything for him. Michael went to university, became a financial advisor, started a family. I was proud of him, and now he's kicking me out of my own home. Without warning. Without shame. The next morning, Vera and I went to the bank. I asked for statements for all my accounts for the last 5 years. The manager politely printed out the documents. I also gave instructions to remove Igor as my trusted representative. He no longer had the right to touch my money. Then, another bank. My safe deposit box was kept there. In it were the original documents, wills, and a dictaphone. An ordinary one, like a pack of cigarettes. For 3 years I had been recording everything related to conversations with my son and his family. I didn't sweep it under the rug. I was cautious. I felt that something was coming. I took everything important with me. Everything else was just stuff. Back at the office, Anna spread the papers out on the table. This is a serious case. Shields, documents, statements, audio recordings. We have a strong case. I don't want to ruin his life, I said quietly. But you have the right to protect yours, she replied calmly. And we wrote a letter. Calm, legally precise, but ruthless in essence. It contained everything: illegal lock changes, attempted forced eviction, use of power of attorney to withdraw funds. At the end, a demand to restore access to the house. Immediately, I asked to add a clause about moral damage, to let them know that this wasn't just a quarrel. This was serious. The letter was sent not only to his home address but also to his work address. Let his colleagues read about what a caring son they have working for them. In the evening, Vera and I raised a glass of wine. To justice, she said. To life lessons, I replied. The next morning, Anna left for work, and I stayed alone in her apartment with a cup of tea by the window. Downstairs, in the park, children were playing, young mothers were chatting on benches, and old people were walking slowly with their canes. Everything was going on as usual. Everyone was living their normal lives. But for me, it was like a whirlpool. Yesterday, there was still a home, silence, order. And today, there was struggle. But strangely, I didn't feel helpless. On the contrary, something long forgotten appeared inside me. Determination. Strength. Calm, but not submissive. I used to be like that. Persistent. Cold in my calculations. Calm in chaos. That's how I raised Igor, alone, after Leon's death. And if I need to gather my willpower again, I will. I'm not an old woman who can be driven into an assisted living facility. Meanwhile, the letter arrived. As planned, a courier delivered the letter to Igor's office. With a signature. And the second one, right to his home. I imagined him reading the lines. Illegal eviction. Fraudulent withdrawal of funds. Possible criminal charges. I imagined him turning pale, his face contorted. Anna called back in the evening. The secretary said he had taken the day off. He said it was a family matter. So he had already read the letter. Let him think, was all I said. I have everything I need. Everything else is unimportant. Should we call the police? Technically, he broke into the house without permission. He's probably rummaging through the drawers right now. I shook my head. No, don't. He's still my son. Give him a chance to understand what he's done. 2 days passed. On the third day, the phone rang. It was Igor's number. I didn't answer. Then it rang a second time. Again, silence. Then a text message. Mom, let's talk. Not on the phone. In person. Vera and I chose a place. My favorite cafe, South Wind. Small and cozy. I used to celebrate the last day of school there with my colleagues. I took Igor there for cake when he was a child. Now, this place had become an arena. My thoughts returned to him as Vera and I walked to the cafe. She was confident in her light-colored suit. I had a new cane and my back was straight. Inside, at a table in the back, Michael was already sitting. He was nervously twirling his coffee cup. I have to admit, he didn't look his best, with his crumpled USD, bruises under his eyes, and a splint. We approached. He stood up. Mom, he reached out to hug me. I stepped aside. Better without the drama. Let's sit down. I took a voice recorder out of my bag. I put it on the table. What's that? He tensed up. Recording. Our conversation will be recorded. If you don't mind. I want everything you say to be said honestly. Mom, but we're family. He smiled tensely. Exactly. And families don't do that. The waitress brought napkins and tea. We placed our order. Water for Vera, coffee for Igor, tea for me. And then silence. Mom, I understand how this looks. But I didn't mean any harm. He stammered. You changed the locks on my house while I was at the funeral. I spoke calmly. That's not caring. It's betrayal. He lowered his eyes. I was going to explain everything. Really? And the $, 80.00, which you withdrew from my account last year, you were going to explain that. He looked up. Where did you get that? I got a statement. I'm a math teacher, Michael. I know how to count. For 5 years, you withdrew small amounts of money, thinking I wouldn't notice. And I just waited for you to come and say, Mom, help me. But you never came. You just stole. It's not stealing. I wanted to pay it back. I wanted to. But I didn't. He stared at the table. Not a word. Only his face turned pale. I continued. You wanted to sell my house, move me into an assisted living facility. Spend the rest on your debts. Mom, I owe $200,000. I invested in a project. Crypto. Unsuccessful. I didn't want to take it from clients. I flinched. Clients? He froze. He realized he had said too much. It was temporary. I wanted to pay it all back. Yes, audito. With interest. Anna intervened for the first time. Do you understand that this is a criminal offense? He lowered his head. I understand. Then listen, I said. We made a plan. Not to punish you, but to give you a way out. Anna took out the documents. Everything was clear. Sell your share in the company. Sell your car. Cut your expenses. That will cover the debt. He stared at the paper as if he were reading Chinese. Are you suggesting I sell everything I've built over the last 15 years? No, I replied. We're suggesting you avoid going to prison. He exhaled deeply. I need to think about it. You have 3 days, Anna said. And one more thing, I added. Return the keys. Now. He silently took out the bunch. He put them on the table. I picked them up but didn't put them away. I leaned toward him. Remember, this house is not an inheritance from your father. It's my house. It was bought with the money from the sale of my parents' apartment. I paid for it. I worked nights, paid the mortgage, taught you, fed you, clothed you. And I won't let you treat me like a burden. He was silent for a long time. And then, quietly, he said, I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't understand right away. I didn't understand at all. I put my hand on his palm, not for me. For yourself, forgive me. And make it right. He nodded. And then he got up and left. The keys remained on the table. Vera and I sat at the table for a while after Michael left. She finished her water and I finished my tea, which had already cooled down but was still warm in its own way. I didn't feel triumphant inside. Only tiredness. But also calmness. He didn't yell. He didn't lie. He didn't threaten. He listened. It was the first time in a long time. You were strong, Anna said quietly. I just told the truth, I suppose, about my shoulders. Sometimes the truth needs to be said out loud. Otherwise, everyone pretends it doesn't exist. We walked home. It was a clear day. It smelled like linden trees. It was almost summer. I don't remember ever feeling this way in recent years. Free. The next day, Vera and I went to my house. I took a new set of keys from her. We replaced the old lock with a new one, just in case. I stood on the porch like a guest. But now I had access. I inserted the key, clicked, and the door opened. The first thing I felt was a strange feeling of emptiness. The house seemed slightly different. Everything seemed to be in its place, the wardrobe, the clock, the armchair. But it felt like someone had been rummaging around here. The drawers were not fully pulled out, stacks of books were knocked over, the carpet in the living room was rumpled. Yes, Michael was looking for documents. Maybe notes. Maybe something else. He didn't find it. I walked through the rooms. Slowly. Stopping at the shelves, straightening the books, smoothing out the curtains. In the bedroom, I opened a box. Lena's wedding ring was there. So not everything in Igor had died. Something remained. I spent the whole first week tidying up the house. I threw out old newspapers. I rearranged books, washed the floors, as if washing away someone else's touch. It was like coming back. As if I was becoming the mistress of the house again. And all this time, silence. No calls, no messages. On the 8th day, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Kirill, my grandson, standing on the threshold. He looked embarrassed, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. Hi, Grandma. Can I come in? I nodded silently and stepped aside. We sat down in the kitchen. I put the flowers in a vase and put the kettle on. He was silent, twisting a napkin in his hands. How are you? He asked when we sat down. I'm fine. And you? Not so good. Everything at home is not so good. My parents are fighting. Emily hardly ever sleeps at home, she lives with her friend. And me? He fell silent. Do you want to say something, Kirill? Yes. I miss the days when we were a normal family. When we came to your place on Sundays, you baked a pie, Dad joked, Mom smiled. Everything was real. I felt a tightness in my chest. It was true. It didn't all fall apart in one day. It happened over the years. Gradually. I used to bake Igor's favorite pie every week. We would all get together. Then we started coming less often. Then, only on holidays. Then, we didn't call at all without a reason. You know, Kirill, I said quietly. Sometimes you can't bring back the past. But you can build something new. If you want to. He nodded. Can we start coming over on Sundays again? Just to have lunch together? Sure. Let's start this Sunday. Yes, he nodded. I'll come. And I'll try to convince Tanya. Your parents. Invite them. If they come, good. If they don't, then it's not time yet. Everyone has their own path. On Sunday, I got up early. I baked that apple pie. With a crispy crust and cinnamon. Just like at Igor's house when I was a child. I baked a chicken with herbs. I made mashed potatoes. Salad. I set the table, just like I used to. At 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Daniel arrived first. He helped set up the chairs and brought a bottle of wine. Then Emily arrived, unexpectedly serious, with a box of cookies. I was about to say that everyone had arrived when the doorbell rang a third time. Michael and Susan were at the door. Both were silent. They kept their distance from each other. But they came. And that was the main thing. Lunch began awkwardly. Short sentences, eyes on their plates. But the food did its job. The pie smelled warm. The chicken was praised. Emily talked about her Even Susan smiled when I complimented her hairstyle. Only Michael sat silently. After the pie, the grandchildren went to the living room to watch a movie. Susan helped me with the dishes. Michael stood in the corner of the kitchen. I approached him. "How are you?" He shrugged. "Sold my share. Paid off most of the debt. Still working. It's hard, but I'm surviving." "You'll manage," I said. He smiled wryly, a financial advisor who was himself drowning in debt. "Who would hire me?" "I have an idea," I said. "Remember Pelevin? The economist we worked with at school?" He nodded. "He runs a financial literacy center now. He's looking for a teacher." I talked to him. "He's willing to meet with you." He looked at me as if he didn't believe me. Did you recommend me? You're my son, Michael. And you made a mistake. A big one. But that doesn't mean you can't try to start over." He nodded. And for the first time in a long time, he was truly grateful. "Thank you, Mom." I put my hand on his shoulder. "Only now, honestly. For real. 2 months have passed since that Sunday dinner. Since then, we've been getting together every week. Sometimes only Daniel and Emily came. Sometimes Michael and Jean came too. It wasn't always easy. We didn't pretend that nothing had happened. But little by little, we learned to listen to each other again." Michael did end up getting a job at the Financial Literacy Center. The salary was less than he was used to. And there were no bonuses, no business trips, no restaurants. He introduced classes for retirees, young families, and students. At first, it was difficult and awkward. But then he got into it. He even told me once, "Mom, when you talk about how not to handle money, it somehow makes a much bigger impression than advice from a textbook." I just nodded. He was starting to grow up at 48. He and Jean got divorced after all. Without scandal. Quietly. Apparently, it was already beyond saving, too much had accumulated. She moved to Dallas to live with her parents. We didn't discuss her. I knew it was their decision. It wasn't my place to get involved. As for my grandchildren, they changed surprisingly. Daniel became more interested in family history. He asked about my parents, how I met Lenya, how we lived on one salary in the 80s. He even asked to see old photos. And Emily enrolled in evening law classes. Once she admitted that after talking to Vera Kavilyeva, something inside her clicked. I realized, she told me, that I wanted to be like her. Smart, calm, strong, fair. Then you'll succeed, I said. Just don't be afraid to say no. Even if it's your family. Especially if it's your family. Michael started calling more often. Just like that. For no reason. He asked how I was feeling, how the flower beds were doing. Sometimes he brought groceries or stopped by to help with something around the house. But most importantly, he was no longer in a hurry. He no longer said things like, "I have a meeting. I'll call you back later, not now, Mom." He listened. Really listened. Once I saw him standing at the living room window looking at our garden. Mom, he said quietly. I always thought this house was Dad's. That he built it, that he was the boss. But you were just there. And now I realize it was you. You built it. You persevered. You held us all together. I didn't answer. I just hugged him. He's grown up now, gray-haired, with wrinkled fingers and tired eyes. But at that moment, he was my little boy again. Time passed. Autumn crept up unnoticed. The leaves fell. The air grew colder. And one evening over tea, I said I was leaving. Where? Daniel looked up. To Europe. For 3 months. Everyone froze. Mom, are you serious? Michael looked at me as if for the first time. Absolutely. To England, to see the British Museum. To Paris, to the embankment. To Italy, to Rome, to the streets. To Greece, just to sit by the sea. I've been saving up little by little all these years. Quietly. In a separate account. And now it's time. You saved up for this. Michael lowered his eyes. I didn't know. I should have known. I said softly. Some things a woman has to do for herself. The whole family saw me off at the airport. They cried. They hugged me. This file is longer than 30 minutes. Upgrade to unlimited on turboscribe.ai to transcribe files up to 10 hours long.